All right, it's time to start. Namaste to all of you. I take this opportunity to really thank all of you for joining in for the session on a Wednesday evening. We had a good session on the previous Saturday where we introduced you to the various career options available if you take a computer science or an information science engineering. We looked at the differences between these two branches. How are they different and how are they the same? We looked at the various colleges that offer these courses and how each of these colleges make a difference to this course through their curriculum. So we looked at that as well. Then we took a few questions which I received from the audience. I was very happy that Mr. Karthik Ramesh obliged us with the answers. Now, one of the feedback that we received from most of you in the feedback that we actually took was kindly include questions from the audience as well. So we felt, hey, why not we do this? Since this session is all about sharing information about the various courses available, you might have had a lot of questions in your mind as well, which you wanted to ask on Saturday. But unfortunately, due to lack of time, we were unable to take in your questions. So this session is exclusively designed for question and answers from your side. Yeah, and once we are done with the questions from your side, I have a few questions that I've received again through the follow-up mail. We'll be asking in these questions. So before I throw this session open for question answers, I would like to once again thank Mr. Karthik for joining in and helping our students in making a better choice through the Q&A. So all of you, so what you can do is maybe you can start one by one. I'll just throw open the gallery view. So if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand and I will have a look at you and I'll definitely call you out for the first question. All right, so who would like to go first? Who would like to ask the first question? Okay, I have somebody with the name 1+7. I don't know your name. It says 1+7. So you're good to go. You can ask your question to Mr. Karthik.
I think he's speaking, but his voice is breaking.
Your voice is breaking, Bhuvan.
Hello, sir. Now I'm clear?
Yeah. We are able to hear you right now.
1 second, sir.
Yes.
Now I'm clear, sir?
Yes, you're very clear.
Sir, if
Please go
we
ahead.
join a normal VTU college and if we don't get a placement in any of the good any company, then what to do next, sir?
Okay. Can I know your name, please?
What are the next options available?
Sure.
Bhuvan, sir.
Can I know your name? Sorry?
Bhuvan.
Bhuvan. Hey, Bhuvan. All right. I think that's a good question. It's always playing in the back of your mind. It's probably something like, okay, what if I do this for 4 years and the end of the 4 years I don't see any output because you've put in or you've spent in 4 years and probably you don't find a job, right?
Yes, sir.
So the hard reality is it does happen. It's not like everyone, like I said, everyone who does a particular degree does not find a job. So there are some of them who might end up in, let's say, something in an industry, or they might end up without an offer at the end of their 4 years, right? So what is it that you can do and what is it that you can influence? So the best thing that you can do is, like I said, take a lot of hands-on courses. So you have Udemy, you have Coursera, you have a lot of these people who are teaching small programming languages. They are trying to do a lot of so you understand what's the latest thing that's happening in the industry, right? So let's say if right now if you're a front-end developer and if you are you guys aware of what a front-end developer or a back-end developer is, and do I have to dive deep into that? If yes, then I'll probably do that after this question. So for this question, probably let's just assume that a front-end developer is someone who builds out all the beautiful screens that you see in an application, the front end of an application which with a user interacts, right? So let's say if you're a front-end developer, you probably want to be learning something like React at this point in time. So that's one of the most used technologies. So try and understand what is the in thing in programming, or what is it that most people are kind of using. And based on that, try to upskill yourself with all these courses that are available online. And then the second part of it, which I said, right, get into these freelancing communities. I can give you examples of communities like Fiverr. So you will have a lot of people who post. There's a lot of work that is needed. There are a lot of people who do that, right? Take them up
Yes,
as
sir.
small assignments. Try and get it done. The way you will probably, so basically with Fiverr, you have a bidding system. So whoever submits the best bid, probably the person who wants their work done, they'll submit that work to you. That's why I kept telling, do not go for money initially. Try to get those projects onboarded. So probably even offer your services for free initially, so that you get a couple of projects onboarded, you get a couple of stars on your profile rating, and you get your hands dirty doing what you do. And then whenever an opportunity opens, and for your opportunity open, again, that's a completely different topic on how do you approach the market when, let's say, you're not doing it through campus placement. Right? There are multiple approaches
Yes,
to
sir.
that. We can talk about that a little later. But let's say now you have an opportunity that is presented in front of you, then you're ready for that opportunity. So the best thing I can tell you right now is, don't get disheartened that probably you do not crack a campus interview right after engineering. Probably work on something for 3 months, 6 months. Just try upskilling yourself in the latest technologies as much as possible. I'm pretty sure there'll be an opening coming up your way through your contacts or however, and then it's about you to convert.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Who's going to go in next? So when you go in next, please tell your name, identify yourself, and then ask the question. So who'd like to go next?
Sir, I would like to go next.
Yeah, who's
Hello,
this?
sir.
Hello, sir. My name is
Sam
Akshay.
Shreyas.
Okay. Shreyas, go on.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Hello,
Shreyas,
sir.
you can ask the question, and then we can have the next person coming in.
Okay. So my question was that if I take up ECE branch in tier 2 colleges like BNMIT or RNSIT, will I get core ECE companies, or will I be forced to take up normal software jobs like the one in Infosys or Wipro?
Sure. Very good question. And I think it's a very, very relevant question. So Shreyas, think of it this way, right? If you understand the market dynamics, there's something called as supply and demand, correct? So the number of jobs that are out there for IT companies, for engineers in India specifically, I think outweighs the jobs that are there for, let's say, ECE companies who are into core electronics engineering, or let's say who are into building products that are primarily for big electronic companies, right? So that way, the number of options you have as an IT engineer are much more. And I think that's the fact in today's world. So it completely is on you to choose your first step in the career. If you are a person who wants to stick to the EC industry, and if it's the industry that you want to work in, and if it's the function that you want to do, then probably the way I would approach the problem in your case would be, I would definitely make sure whatever EC companies I would try to get within India, I'll definitely give it a go. But through the 4 years, I'll probably start building out what is required for me to land an EC job anywhere in the world. Don't just look at India as your option, right? So if EC is the function you want to go behind, or if, let's say, electronics is what kind of is your passion, and that's what it drives, you have platforms like LinkedIn, you have many other platforms where you can just reach out to people, and you can work with them with, let's say, like internships, or you can take mentoring up from people who are already there in the industry. You can ask them for small projects. And this is the way you kind of keep a connect with people outside India and outside probably your own personal network. And then when let's say there's an opportunity, or let's say the last 2 years of your engineering where the campus placements actually kick in, you can actually start applying to these jobs outside, right? And try your luck in getting into one of these companies. I'm not saying you'll definitely land it, but that's how you open up your opportunities, or that's how you open up your doors. So now, is it the only thing that you need to do? And usually, why do people end up, let's say, electronic engineers in tier 2 colleges end up in Infosys, or let's say TCS or Accenture or whichever company, right? I have my friends who've ended up there. I have friends from mechanical who've ended up as IT engineers. So the reason, again, like I said, is when campus placement starts, Now imagine you are 400, 500 people on one campus, and everyone is trying to secure your first job. There's a lot of peer pressure and there's a lot of mental pressure to also land a job, right? That is where some of them succumb and say, hey, listen, probably I'll do something for the first 2-3 months. Let me get something as a job. I get started off on, let's say, an IT job, and meanwhile I look for an electronics job. I'll try and make a switch. Some of them can, but most of them kind of get stuck in that cycle, because once you get into a professional job, you are learning the job. There's a lot of things you need to learn. It's not like you're already there with the maximum skill set. You have to upskill yourself. There's constant learning, and there's a lot of time that is spent in learning the tricks of the trade, right? So if that is how it is, how much time can you spend on actually going behind, let's say, electronics? So it's a trade-off in your head. So you really need to be very sure how you want to approach your placements. If you're very, very sure that you want to do something in electronics, then I would say give it a full-hearted go just out of engineering. But if let's say because of your financial situations, or let's say because of personal reasons, or whatever is it, you want to start earning first and but then look for a job in electronics, then you have the longer path. So the answer is, again, like I said, you need to be really clear on what you want out of your end of engineering course. And if that's what you want, then you go for it. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir. That was really helpful.
Mr. Karthik, just adding on to what Shreyas asked, you did your engineering from one of these tier 2 colleges. You did your engineering from B&M, and you landed a job at Keen initially. How was the jump from Keen to was it Adobe that you joined in later?
Yeah.
So how were you able to crack the interview of Adobe after working in a company like Keen and after studying in a college like B&M? How did you land up a job there?
Sure. That's an interesting question, and it's my personal story. So let me answer this in a way which will probably be like a story for you guys, and you can follow it, right? Right out of probably I'll explain the placement one as well, how funny it was, and how I'm explaining this because it's very important, and that's how placements work usually. So when I was in B&M, I did not really do well during my 12th. I did not have a lot of marks on my side. So I did get through the management way, and it was something I landed up with B&M. But once I got into engineering and once I started understanding, I really kind of enjoyed computer science subjects or programming subjects specifically. And on the day of my first day of placement, I still remember this very clearly. I did not have a shortlist for Keen. And it was primarily because they have this cutoffs. They say in 12th you need to have a cutoff of, let's say, 60%, and you need to have a certain cutoff in engineering, and then you're eligible for certain companies, and certain companies are not very strict about these cutoffs, right? And I did not make the first cutoff. So on the day of placements, I had gone for a football match in the morning. I came back, I was literally in my football attire. I went to the HR of the company and I told her, ma'am, I really want to attend this placement, but I don't have cutoff eligibility in 12. But in my engineering, I have made up for it. I really want to give this a shot. How is this going to work? And she said, okay, you write the aptitude test. If you clear it, we'll see where it goes. And from there, I think it just moved on, and somehow the first job kind of happened, right? Why am I telling you this story? Because one of the criteria is, let's say, if you want to even get into, let's say, a Microsoft or a Google or Adobe or one of the big companies that are there, when you do your campus placements or when you are applying, let's say, outside campus, there are so many people who will apply for this job because it's one of those precious jobs that are out there in the market, right? Very lot of people competing for one job. And what is the easiest way for a company to kind of, let's say, put a selection criteria? The first initial selection criteria. They can't literally scroll through, let's say, 10,000 applications to figure out if this candidate is my best fit. So usually the first screening that happens will be on your percentage or the kind of marks you've done, because that makes the process easier for them. So they know that, okay, he's scored decently through his engineering, so he kind of understands certain subjects really well. So that's my first level of cutoff. And through the entire class, or let's say the entire college, your understanding is at a certain level. So that's their first screen criteria. And then the rest of the process anyways follows. So anyone who's taking up any subject, that is also one of the things you need to think. It's not just, you'll always have a few outliers who probably crack the industry with really low marks or anything, but you always would like to be in the median or the mean, which is essentially the biggest part of the curve. You make your opportunities the most. So scoring well is good. So now I got into Keen. I was not really a great coder, or I was not really a great programmer, but within my own team, I did pretty well, and they gave me a couple of let's say components, or let's say products to handle, and I was doing pretty well in that, or at least that's what I felt. And then I really wanted to get into a product company because I had a few relatives of mine who were working in product companies, and for me it was a financial decision to move as well, because it was a significantly higher paying job, and I also thought, okay, it's coding here versus coding there. I think I should make use of it, right? So I started applying for jobs outside in the product industry, and I got rejected in like 15 interviews. In fact, in one interview, I remember this very vividly. There was a person who very politely told me, listen, you need to go back home. You need to start learning how to code. And I was coding for 2 years. I really thought I knew how to code, right? And he said, whatever knowledge you have right now is not up to the industry standards. Just because I wrote a few lines of code doesn't mean I'm coding well, right? Coding is an art in itself. You need to understand what's the best practices out there, how do you do it well, and all of those. That kind of hit me. I said, okay, I am writing some code, but that code is not what the industry expects, or it's not the best way to do it. And then I went through 14 or 15 rounds of interview, and finally I understood that I'm probably not as good as a developer at Adobe. I'm probably better off as a white box tester who can code a little, but can get into a product company initially. So that's how my transition happened, because I thought, okay, once I get into the industry and I start seeing people around me and the way they work, then probably I'll pick it up from them, and then I can make my next switch. And that's how it happened. And from there, I think one thing led to another, and the entire story went on.
Thank you, Karthik. Can we go to the next question, please?
Sure.
So I would like to ask a question.
Yes,
Hey,
please, go
Arkesh,
ahead.
can you speak up a little?
Yeah, sure, sir. Hello, sir. My name is Arkesh, and my question is developing a high income skill more important or joining into one of the top colleges? And my second question is, what is the kind of exposure I will get in a college other than placement, like the good kind of exposure?
All right. So just to make sure I understood your question correctly, I'm going to repeat it and correct me if I'm wrong. The first question you asked is, should I go behind a high income, or should I go behind a better college?
Sir, is developing a high income skill more important or getting into
Okay.
one of the top colleges?
Okay. One of the top colleges. Okay. So let me answer that first, right? So when you say high income skill, right, it really again boils down to your preference on what you want to do. In fact, I think one of the sessions which Karthik was setting up was about drivers and what really motivates you as a person to do anything that you want to do, right? And I'm probably going to be a little blunt and talk about this, and probably Karthik might find it a little funny. Teaching is probably not the highest paying job out there, but it is something which was a driver for him, and it was something that he wanted to do. And because of that, he did something which was relevant to teaching that pushed him into teaching, right? So now you should look at it backwards. So if let's say the kind of job you want to do is let's say in an industry that does not pay high, then obviously your college and which college to choose within that industry and which gives you the best opportunities within a particular industry matters a lot, right? But if your goal is to have a high income, and which is not a wrong goal, obviously a lot of people have different ways to look at it, right? So if you want to work in a high income industry, like right now IT pays a lot, and specifically data sciences is a very high paying job at this point in time, right? So if that's a skill you want to do, and let's say in an industry like that, you can, it doesn't mean that getting into a good college won't get you a high incoming job. It can go hand in hand, right? So on the line, on the sides, you learn whatever skill is needed to make your high income. Why not? So at the same time, like probably what Bhuvan asked, probably job right out of campus placements, but you want to go for it, right? Let's say in 6 months to 1 year to jump into that stream. So think of college as something. So the parameters, if you remember, that I put up last, you want, and what is the career you want to probably go after, or what is it that you want right after your fourth college. Again, income and skill is something you can always learn on the side, and college will obviously support it. It's not like it's completely too plays along with your education as well. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So the second.
Yes, sir. So what kind of good exposures will I get in a good college other than placements? Like
Sure.
how will be my growth in a college?
Sure. Very good question. So I'll give you a small anecdote of good friend of mine. So there's a very good friend of mine who's currently working with Microsoft, and he did his engineering from BITS Pilani, and he's a CS graduate. So one day we were casually talking about what is the course curriculum, how they go behind exams, and what is taught, and how are things in BITS Pilani, right? And BITS Pilani is a good college. I think most of us know that BITS Pilani is a good college. And he used to say there's a particular course, if I'm not wrong, I think it was computer science, computer networks. And there was a particular professor who used to have the toughest papers out there. And in his paper, basically, he used to tell you to design a network of computers through which you can pass information, receive messages. It was real world problems, very difficult problems to kind of go behind, right? But let's say if you were to do it in a college, in a VTU based college, it completely depends upon the professor who's teaching it. So they might not get that hands-on, and they would say probably, hey, listen, this is computer network, these are network so packets, and this is how it is sent across the wire, and this is communication protocols. What is IPv6? What is IPv4? So basically, they would teach you all the theory there, and you would really not get very deep into the subject. So when you get into a good college, it's also about how much hands-on you get into a particular course. And there are, so let's say now if you probably crack, let's say an IIT Delhi or one of the big colleges that's out there, right? You also have these incubation centers right out of these colleges. Let's say IIM Mumbai or even IIT Delhi or IIT Mumbai or IIT Delhi. They have a lot of alums who work on different startups, and they also have current students working on different startups. So, and the college kind of supports these kind of, these kind of exercises, right? So what happens as a student? You are exposed to the industry very early, and it's not necessarily the curriculum. You are interacting with the alums who've gone through this process, and they're coming back to the campus to do a lot of activities, and you're learning all of these different things, which is probably not a part of your curriculum. And that's extra learning for me, which I think will play a major role in the way you look at curriculum. So this is curriculum, right? So now let's talk about what else apart from curriculum do you learn in a college, which is a little different. Because VTU, I'm taking VTU as a primary example because I think most of us here are from Karnataka and they relate with that university the most. So let's take VTU as an example. Because VTU has so many colleges under them, they have to have a standardized curriculum across these colleges, and these colleges kind of specify how they function and stuff like that. And it's really left to the college how you drive interaction and learning. So let's say if you are in, let's say, BITS Pilani or one of the IITs or NITs, you have so many social clubs, community clubs. You have, so even in engineering, you have clubs like entrepreneurship cells, and you have clubs where you can do marketing or journalism. They have these small student-driven clubs. It's not your curriculum, but it's based out of your interests and how you interact and what you learn. And it will be somehow connected back to the industry. So these are other things which will kind of add into your decision making or your process of learning again. So that's how I'd say a college would differ in adding more value to what you do over your 4 years.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, just to add a point here, when Mr. Karthik talks about alum, he's talking about alumni. So I think you guys would not be exposed to this word as of now. So alumni are the students who have already passed out of that particular college and who are still in contact with the student, with the existing students. Thank you, Arkesh, for your question. Who would like to go in next?
Sir, is it hearing clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Dhanush. So my name is Dhanush. I wanted to ask that from a person joining a new company from a older company, does work experience matters or a skill that he knows newly matters?
Okay, very good question, and I think it's one of the things that the industry is still. It's not a one answer question, right? because the entire industry, it's not just about IT. I think if you go to any industry, there are multiple factors that play into how you're selected for a job or you're shortlisted for a job and how the interview happens and what you want to do. So I'll answer it in that way. So let's say you are jumping within the same function. So when I say function, so let's say you're a developer and you want to jump as a developer into another company and kind of doing the same skill set, right? So your previous experience will definitely play a lot of role in that. So if you have, let's say, worked on Java for, let's say, 3 years of your life and you want to find another Java profile in a different company, whatever relevant experience you've built in Java, that will definitely play into how you find your next job. But let's say you've been a Java developer for 3 years, but now you want to probably get into data sciences, or you want to do something like project management, right? Which is a different function altogether, and it is not something that you've done before. So then what happens is, whatever new skill you've learned, right? Probably you will not crack it at a very high level. You'll probably crack it at a lower entry level. And it again is a very dependent question. So let's say you are going into a startup where the number of employees are less, but the scope of work is a lot. So you will get your hands dirty into doing something which is probably not at the very basic level, right? So if you work with a startup, you will definitely get your hands dirty into doing bigger things. So they'll also be open to giving out options to people who have a little less experience, because it works economically for them, and they are also expecting to take up more work and also do it. So that could be an option, right? But if you go to a more structured company, let's say like a Microsoft or an Amazon, they have very strict screening processes. So they are looking at certain key factors, and because a lot of applications are there, they are looking for certain check-off points or checklists before you get selected for a particular job. So if you are looking for, let's say, like a data scientist, they would look, and if they have mentioned that you need to have prior experience of 2 to 3 years, then that's a strict checklist that most of them will follow, unless you have something exceptional that you've done, and that's something that the manager is really interested about. So there is no one single answer to that, and I think it's something which is based upon a particular company, within a function, or within a role, because you have so many combinations. It really depends upon how you approach it, and I think that's the best answer at this point I can give.
Just to add on to what Karthik said, my take on this: work experience versus skill. Now, work experience is like a entry ticket into a movie theater. Now, without the entry ticket, you cannot get into the movie theater. But the moment you walk into the movie theater, yeah, whether you get a chance to watch the movie or not, whether you understand the movie or not, is entirely left to your understanding and your skill set. So you might have 30 years of work experience, but if you do not have the required skill set, then it will not help you out in the long run. So it's always important to build on your skill set. Of course, along with your work experience, these two things work complementary in ensuring that you have a better profile about yourself. Thank you, Dhanush. Anybody else has any question?
Sir, I have another question. Can I ask, sir?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
Bhuvan, please go ahead.
Sir, through CET, if we get CET in private colleges, it will be fees structure will be less, sir. But if we go through some another exams like COMEDK and all, the fees will be more. Is it really worth to go to that college, like giving more fees if we don't get a good rank in CET?
I think, Bhuvan, this question I leave it for KK, because when I passed out 14 years back, there was only CET, there was no COMEDK. So probably KK, Karthik is in a better position to answer this.
Yes, Bhuvan. So this is again a trade-off. The trade-off is this is one of the things that I spoke about drivers. You need to look at your financial condition as well at home before you choose a particular course or choose a particular college. Now, guaranteed that whether you get into an IIT or whether you get into a normal college, whether you are guaranteed a job in an X company or a Y company is not there, which means everybody starts afresh. Of course, somebody who joins a good college starts better. He has that initial advantage, but there is no ground rule saying students who have come out of normal engineering colleges or tier 2, tier 3 engineering colleges cannot find a job. So at the end of the day, this is a decision that you need to take with your family. Sit with them, have a discussion with them. what is it that that our family can afford. If we cannot afford it right now, can I take an educational loan? Do I have the capability of taking the loan and then coming back and ensuring that I clear it off? So these are questions that you need to sit and discuss with your family. But as far as the general perception goes, college matters to a great extent, but at the end of the day, you and what stuff is loaded inside you makes a even better what do you say, impact when you go for a job than the name of the college. So I would leave that to you as an individual, depending upon your personal finances. If your personal finances are not so great, that's all right. Take up a good college in Karnataka. VTU still has a lot of very good colleges which come under the CET bracket, which are doing really well. Take up those colleges. No need to hurry, because you have the whole life to dream and then get into these big companies.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bhuvan, just to add on to what Karthik said, right? Apart from what he said, probably one exercise you can do, and this is something which might help you, is make a table, right? So let's say I'm just going to put out a few college names, right? So let's say you have Dayanand Sagar, then you have BMS, then you have PS, and let's say you have BNM, and you have, let's say, NIT. Let's say these are the 5 colleges you have in your list, and you'll probably have something like, let's say, a college you definitely want to get in because it's like your dream college, and then there are you rank it based upon your preferences. So let's say this is the preference I want, and then just put up the parameters that we put up that day on the slide, right? What is the fees? What is the placement number? What is the initial money you probably will get right out of each college? And then when you actually see it that way, what will happen is the delta of money you're probably spending. Uh, let's say BMS through CET and BMS through Comet K. And let's say that the delta is 50,000 per year, which is 2 lakhs at the end of 4 years, right? But let's say you get something like, I don't know, some XYZ college in CET, and it's 2 lakhs lesser, but the placement chances are only 40% through that. And but BMS, let's say the placement chances are 80%. Then I would say, is it really worth investing that 2 lakhs and making sure you get a placement right out of it and work backwards? So I think it's an exercise you can do where you can put up your preferences. You obviously know what your constraints are, and then you can see what the trade-off is, and it will kind of make it very clear for you on, okay, so now this is the burden I have to go through, but is it really worth it because my chances of getting something is higher? So you can do something like that.
Sir,
And
thank you, sir.
just want to add on, now is the best time to actually start searching for these colleges, and most of the data that Mr. Karthik is talking about is available online. You can reach out to them. You can reach out to the placement officers of each of these colleges, which you have listed down. Speak to them about how the history has been about placements. With that, you can make a conscious decision and have a trade-off wherein your family's finances is also taken care. At the same time, you have landed up into a college which gives you a better opportunity after your engineering.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So thank you,
sir.
Bhuvan. Anybody else would like to ask a question?
Can I
I
ask
would
one
like
more
to ask.
question?
Yeah, who was that?
Sorry, guys, we have 2 minutes,
We
Karthik.
have
So do you think we should,
two minutes 40 seconds. Yeah.
can we create another meeting link and share it with these guys?
I think I can do that. Probably we can have this
Sure.
session in the say we can start off at around 5 moment this session ends. I will send a email link to all of you for the next session. So I hope, is that fine? If it's fine, I just want you to, all of you, to raise your hands and let me know that you're willing to come in for one more session, because I feel that we have more questions.
Sir, can you do it on another day?
You want it on another day? Okay, I can explore that as well. So can I have a show of hands? How many would like to join a session immediately after this session? You can just raise your hand. You can just raise your hand and let me know. Based on that, I can create what can be done.
I think 5. That's about 6.
All right. So what I can do is, since the majority, I would want everybody to be, all of you to be in the call again, in the session again, because all of you will have a lot of invaluable questions which can help each other. So I will have one more follow-up session tomorrow. So tomorrow evening, same time, 5 o'clock. Let's have a follow-up session. I'll be sending a mail once again to all of you, to your respective email IDs, giving you the invite. So tomorrow at 5, we will be back. Once we're done with the questions, then probably we'll shift to the next category of questions that I had, especially with respect to an MBA. Now, is MBA mandatory? What are the advantages doing? And we'll just touch upon that with Mr. Karthik Ramesh, because he's done his master's in business administration as well from ISB. So we will take all your follow-up questions tomorrow, same time at 5 p.m. and also touch upon certain other questions related to MBA. So thank you so much for all of you for attending this session.